This is the Gospel Revolution.
Since you're knocking on the door, you're begging to come in, yeah. Unaware that all the while love's been knocking from within. You are the love you see, a perfect yet unique, righteous, holy.
Here's the founder and president of the Gospel Revolution, Michael Lilborn Williams.
Hello, Daniel Thomas Rouse. It is a wonderful, we're actually recording this. I guess I shouldn't tell people that. But we're actually recording this Easter Sunday. So,
well, happy Resurrection Sunday.
Yeah, on Friday. On the Friday after.
It's a week of resurrection.
Like kids nowadays, they don't have a birthday; they have a birthday week, and then it went to a birthday month. You gotta buy presents for them for the whole damn month. Now it's like,
And then when you become Michael Lilborn Williams, you just celebrate a year early.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it starts, like 8 months early.
Well, here we are 5 days when this podcast goes out. We're 5 days after Resurrection Sunday. Mm-hmm. And it just reminds me that we went through one of the recent series we went through is Jesus was still apparently hanging around for 40 days until the day of Pentecost.
Well, according to one single line in the book of Luke, one line.
Yep.
Three other accounts. And through that narrow passageway, you go to this explosion of a story about the day of Pentecost that nobody else mentions ever. Never does anybody ever in all of this, this is when the church began, is on the day of Pentecost. But Paul didn't know it. Even Peter, James, and John didn't know it because they never mentioned it.
Michael, the work that has been happening, I really feel like we're in a revolution. You and I, just before we recorded here, we spent an hour just talking about all the phone calls and conversations that you have been having with some of our revolutionaries who are revolutionizing our thinking. We are truly in a gospel revolution right now.
We are, and its sources of research are expanding. It's out of my control, and that makes me nervous when something's out of my control. No, it's a wonderful feeling, folks, because see, I compare it to the day I die when everything's going to be outside my control. So this gives me a picture of what's going to happen when I die. Everything's going to keep going on. People are going to be researching, and boy, that's not a thing to talk about on Easter sunrise days, the day I die. But I just don't, I don't see the difference between the day I die and the days I'm living. I don't know what's wrong with me, Daniel. I just don't. People are talking about what happens after you're dead, and it's like, I just don't see a difference between after I'm dead and while I'm alive. Now, why I feel that way, I don't have a doctrinal leg to stand on. And I don't need one, don't want one. I just know that that death is a part of living. It has been for everything that's ever come to this earth, and also for Christ, himself. Death is a part of living, and that's where we have great confidence that while we may not be able to articulate to you exactly what that is, we know we have life eternal.
Yes, indeed. Michael, let's get some business done out of the way right away. We're towards the end of the pledge drive anyways. Mm-hmm. And so if you haven't taken the opportunity to call Michael or go to gospelrevolution.com and hit the donate button, please do so. As you can see, and as you can hear in the last several weeks, we are in a gospel revolution. We are sharing a message that has been stifled and hidden and buried and mistranslated and perverted over the last 2,000 years. And our mission here at the Gospel Revolution, and we are living up to it, Michael, we are restoring the original message of the gospel of grace and peace.
Well, we are indeed. And like I say, we are miners looking for the heart of gold, right?
Yep.
And but we're not the only ones. See, I research, Daniel researches, Lisa McPeak researches, Ethan Massengill. Now these guys have teamed up now. They are researching together, and then we have Robert May, and then we have Jackie Barnard, and I'm all the time in communication with Jackie on research and getting his reflections back and what he's seeing and understanding. And that's just immediacy. That's not the extended family. We're all the time getting things from Moses now. Moses is moving back to Nakuru and starting the School of the Scriptures all over again.
Woohoo!
And his 18-year-old son is now, I think we have found the person to begin to accommodate our media needs. He is 18 years old, and he is now the son of. He has always been the son of Moses and Liz Gata, and he's going through these these teachings on the 1,000-year reign, and getting transcripts ready for us. And this is all while he is attending his first year at university. We could not be in a better position. All age groups are now represented in the Gospel Revolution. If you are from legal age to my illegal age, and we have people that are more illegal than me, even so. So anyway.
And all of us in between.
You in-betweeners, yeah. In-betweeners. But anyway, everyone we've got generations now involved in the Gospel Revolution. We have generations involved in, can I say that again?
Yeah.
We have generations presently involved in the Gospel Revolution. I've got to say that from my standpoint of 20 years of not only not a generation, I was the only voice of it for 20 years. And then slowly these breakthroughs began to happen, and people did spin off. The way we had one of our biggest reactions to the gospel of grace and peace was that I would go into a church, preach that, the pastor would get mad, or he would accept it and the church would close, or the people would receive it and leave the church and the pastor had no flock, so the church would close. So, but the people in the church, the pastors usually went on with the gospel. There's many of them that are still out there today. But they were people who thought that they had to be in the ministry to be in the perfect will of God. When they found out, I don't have to do this. And you know who was even more happy? The pastors' wives. It's like, thank God this prison's over with. And having to go in on Sunday, putting on a I'm the pastor's wife show and all that stuff. And I just get to be people now. But we also had those who had suffered so much underwater with the teachings of the law, and that once they got up and took a breath, they took off for the hills. They said, "We don't even have to be here. Thank you. We've got what we came here for. See you later, Michael Williams." And we're happy about that. We're not disappointed by the outcomes of gospel in each individual life.
So if you have been listening and you can see this revolution happening, and I hope you're sitting there saying, how can I get involved? Well, as you can see, there are people who are thinking, there are people who are doing the research, but Michael, we also have those who are financially supporting what we're doing. And everybody doing their part is just, it's huge. It's monumental. It's what keeps us going, and it allows us to do what we do. And during the pledge drive, we're trying to raise our monthly supporters. We're also looking to get this through this pledge drive to raise $10,000, and we are on our way, but we got some work to do. So, Michael, how can they get a hold of you?
832-318-9339. And what we have right now, Daniel, is we have about 5 people who have participated, and we're about halfway to the goal.
Right on.
Yeah. So we've got another week to come up with $5,000 more. And folks, that's just such a small amount, but for us, it's huge. It keeps us from having to look at the bank account and see whether something or not can or cannot be done. And that's just a huge relief for me. I manage the finances. We have an accountant that oversees the finances. We have Hazel who takes care of making sure all the bills are paid and everything is accounted for and given to the accountant. And we have a board of directors that oversees that. So we appreciate what you do, folks. I have not called one person, Daniel. I am so derelict on this. And I'm telling you, Don Bartlett would be so happy I have called no one. Because we would probably down from 5 to only 2 people giving if it had been me, right?
So make sure you go to gospelrevolution.com and hit the donate button. Or once again, you can call Michael on
832-318-9339. You're getting like Don Bartlett. You enjoy pulling my chain, making me do things.
And again, a big thank you to all of you being involved, not only to the financial supporters, but also those who are helping in the research and the study. It is monumental.
It is.
Well, Michael, last week's Powercast was, can I still say it? Heavenly?
It was indeed.
We were looking at the difference between the Greek word heaven and the Greek word heavenly. That is, heaven is Oranius, and heavenly is Ep-Oranius, which has the prefix epi, which means to superimpose. And we talked about this merging of heaven and earth. Right. Oranius is the literal heaven, the place where God lived and where the angels lived. It was separate from earth. It was where we saw the angels ascending and descending from. It was all of this, but that all changed at the cross. And through the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, what happened is that heaven came to earth, and then there was a Greek word that changed, and all things that were heaven, Oranius, are now heavenly, Ep-Oranius. It means that heaven and earth, God and man, and angels, and all of that have become one in one body. And Michael, I'd like to tell you today you're looking quite heavenly.
Well, thank you. And you look like you have just dropped out of heaven. I mean, it's because all are true. All those things are true in ways that we never understood before. So what we've got this beautiful vision that was had by one of the prophets. You can tell us who. He saw a ladder descending from heaven, and they saw angels going back and forth. And then we have Jesus then speaking out when that prophecy was fulfilled.
We do?
Yes. Jesus says while he's talking to his disciples, and from this point forward, you're going to begin to see angels ascending and descending between heaven and earth. You see, this was the beginning of the amalgamation, the inclusiveness of heaven and earth coming together. The latter was Christ himself. That's what was being used to access both. And it was quite amazing, this pathway, the latter itself being Christ, according to what we can find out. They were transferring themselves Even when Christ died on the cross, they were here gathered around. They were here in the opposing of the forces that were here ready to destroy the world. And they were here to make sure that the work of the cross was carried out. And then once it was, there was a complete collapse. And Revelation is the absolute dogged best at describing this collapse of everything in heaven into the earth. I saw New Jerusalem descending. What else are you going to say, folks? This is all of heaven descending into the earth. And we see that everything gets in place. God and Christ and at the right hand and all of that. But all that descends then into the human race itself. It literally says that. And now we've got to go back and do more teaching in the Revelation because we see more of its constructs more accurately. It's not going to change from what we taught, but it's going to become much more understandable because now we have the language that was put together by God himself for us to be able to understand it. As we've said many times, we came into all of this understanding, first off, blindfolded and walking backward and coming into the back door. And Daniel and I were talking earlier. I said, it's really weird because we've not come into a big room and then we found another door to a smaller room and another door to a smaller room. We walked into this, the vastness of this in that condition. But as we have traversed this and we've been able to open and go into another room, if you will, we found a larger room than the one we were in. And we found another and we just found another room larger than any one that we've ever been in. And part of that is in connection with our other researchers in the gospel revolution. My brain is so over stimulated with this understanding of the gospel, and these guys are doing such a beautiful job. And Robert May, I will be eternally grateful to him for being patient with me for all of this time. Now, Robert is also investigating. It's not numerology. Numerology is something that fits into like palm reading and stuff like that. But there is the numeric values of the Hebrew language, and that means something. And two things happen simultaneously in three different parts of the world, from Puerto Rico to Arizona and to here in Clarksville and up to Daniel. I did not realize that we were embarking on Genesis 1:1, and that at the same time these guys were embarking on Genesis 1:1, and from two different aspects and coming up with the same conclusion that just has blown me away completely, and Daniel also. So the power of this, we just found another key to clarify even, and probably the most clarifying way that we've ever had to explain the 1,000-year reign still lies in front of us, Daniel.
Yep.
I mean, with what we've shared about it, this unknown subject that we are speaking of, what are your thoughts about this unknown subject that's coming up?
It's going to be the greatest thing that we have ever done. I'm telling you, we have done podcasts and they have been great, but this is going to be the greatest podcast. I'm sorry. Tribute to President Trump.
Yes.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be...
you just did it again. Huge.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. Yeah, Michael, I think the picture that you just painted is the best one. Is we open a door and it's a bigger room, and this is a huge room, and I think it's going to restore again the validity of the Hebrew Scriptures, and outside of all the work that we've done, that's one of the biggest things that we are endeavoring to do is to restore the Hebrew Scriptures to the raw and to what it was originally intended to do and how precise it truly was. And what happened in this thing perhaps is the reason why the Jewish people do not see Jesus as the Messiah.
And here is the thing. Our confidence in the Hebrew scriptures, which stays exactly the same. But we found out that there was the Hebrews in their scripting, they started deliberately leaving out a certain tense, prefix, suffix, if you will, all in the guise of, we don't know if it's a guise or they actually felt this way about it, but you know how that they say, oh, that's the name that can't be said out loud. Number one, there was no such name that could not be said out loud. That was their decision. They decided to not. In fact, it says just the opposite. God said, this is my name. Go tell everybody. Instead, they said, oh, don't ever mention that name. So wrapped up in that name, and it got expunged from the Hebrew scriptures. It's the only thing we know of that was taken out of the Hebrew scriptures.
And we know when it happened, too.
We know exactly when it happened. This is the research that Lisa and Ethan have done. And then at the strike of the same bell, here Daniel and I are starting in on this because it all starts out with the first word in the Hebrew. We did not know this had been hidden, but they discovered, Lisa, as the one that has started sharing this with me, they found that it had been expunged. How many times has this word been expunged from the Hebrew scriptures? Almost 7,000 times.
Wow.
And we know exactly where now each time it was expunged. We know so what they did is they took their false instruction, just like religious people will do. Christians and Jews are no different in this aspect. They like becoming religious about something. So they took the word. God didn't, let me assure you, God did not tell them not to say Yahweh. God did not tell them not to say his name. He told them his name and said, now go tell everybody what my name is. They decided, that's that word we can't speak. So what did they do? They decided if we can't speak it, we shouldn't write it either. Do you know that in that term is the name of Christ himself?
Michael, as you and I were talking about that this morning, I remembered about a gentleman that I had brought to my church in Calumet years ago, and he was a Messianic Jew, and I had invited him to come in and do a Seder meal for a congregation. And in the time that we had spent outside of that meeting, we were talking about this, and it all came back to me. I remember he was saying something about the names of God, and he was working on a project where he was writing the Hebrew scriptures out in English, restoring not only the names of God, but also all the names of the characters. And it didn't really click at me, in me, when we were having that discussion years ago. But this morning that came to my memory. And Michael, I found his Bible. And how about just to tease people on this, and then we really should move on.
We've got to, or we're going to get headlong into this.
But just to tease you on this, and this is out of his Bible, which is the New Messianic Version Bible, Genesis 1:1. All of that beginnings, God, Elohim, the living word, created the universe and everything in it. And the earth became without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God, Elohim, the Messiah pre-incarnate, moved upon the face of the waters.
Yeah. And, Daniel, we found this without knowing what we found. Remember, we decided that Elohim is the word for Christ. Remember, we did that. And that's without any information. We were able, but we did that by volume of information, not by looking intricately at the individual information. it just became very clear that Elohim was talking about Christ. And so then, as we were the places where Elohim at least showed up, then we were able to distinguish, and that distinguishing of that did help in establishing the 1,000. But now we know that that word has been expunged 7,000 times. The fact that people have done this work, the fact that our gospel revolutionaries were able to find this, not knowing that somebody has done work on it. But I'd say that our GRs are going to be able to find out more about it even than what's been written, because they will see it from the perspective of the completed work of the cross. And these guys are, but that one, you can't mess that up. So what this does, see, Christ himself restored the name in through the Greek, through the language that he was speaking, and which wasn't Greek. But he restored it, and he said, that's me. Yeah, I was before Abraham was. That was him restoring the name back again. What these guys are doing is going back now and showing where that name was expunged, and we have to do the big leap to try to say this means that. And some people have said to us, well, that's not what that says. And now we get to go, nah, 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 nah. Yes, it did too. Don't you like doing nah, 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 nah?
I do. Nah, 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 nah. Okay, let's get back to heaven and heavenly.
Oh, I know. I feel you jerking my chain. I'm trying my best here.
So we looked last week at the Heaven Father versus the Heavenly Father, which again, it's all tied up in this name. Understanding the name of God will really reveal this to us. But we have that Jesus, when he was talking to the people when he was walking the earth, he called them their Heaven Father.
Yeah.
But when he was talking about his Heavenly Father as his personal relationship, it was heavenly, Eporanius Father. And so that was the first time that was used.
Very first time was God Christ making reference to his Father was his Eporanius Father. Never once did he say use that word Eporanius as an identification for anybody around him, their father.
Yeah. Wow. And then as we moved on to some of the other verses that use that, we found ourselves in Ephesians. And this was that transition. And one of the things, and we're still in the series on the pageantry of the 1,000-year reign of Christ. And Michael, would you believe it that we found out that when everything that was Oranius became Eporanius was at the end of the 1,000-year reign of Christ?
Yeah.
And we looked at Ephesians 1:20, where it says that after he had raised from the dead, that he was seated at the right hand in Eporanius. And that we pointed out is different than him being seated at the right hand of God in Oranius.
Yeah.
Jesus isn't seated at the right hand of God out there somewhere.
Yeah.
He is now seated at the right hand in heavenly, which is who we are. It's where we are. It's what we are.
Yes, it's what we are. The power of this is shown up. And remember, we kind of put a screeching halt on Hebrews.
Yeah.
Because we saw something. It's like, this is not, something's wrong here. So what this has done is forced our hand to do extensive study in Hebrews. We're not going to be able to do this for you today, but we can tell you that Apollos himself has been completely redeemed. Let me say this to you. Apollos did understand this. However, Apollos did not write all of the book of Hebrews.
What?
Yeah.
Goodness.
It is really weird to see that chapters 1 through 9, he gives a clear delineation between Oranius and Eporanius. And then in chapter 12, gives a very clear definition of Oranius and Eporanius. Chapter 13, we were able to segregate that. And we realized now, Daniel, we should have known if they added a chapter at the end, they may have messed with the middle of it too. The last chapter 13 of Hebrews, we were able to conclude, and AI confirms the sentence structure and everything, the language used and everything else is completely different than that of the writer, whoever the writer would be. Whether you agree if it's Apollos or not is irrelevant on this point. The writer of chapter 13 is not the writer of what we see in the rest of the book. So then, and we're going to have to go through this with surgical tool so that you can see it. It's so clear. It made me just feel stupid when I finally was able to accept that there in the 3/4 of the way through this book, that this interpolation began, this pseudographical interpolation began. I was just blown away.
Yeah. Chapter 9, we looked at that last week about the difference between being purified in the Oranius and being purified in the Eporanius.
He's the one who gives the clear distinction that things done on earth, that is so beautiful. He explained that all of these earthly things, sacrifices and all of this, that cleansed the things that were in heaven. But the heavenly had to be purified by better sacrifices than these, which was Christ. Yeah. So the earth, what was done was a purification of an ongoing purification of heaven. It didn't help purify humanity at all. But then heaven came to earth and purified everything on earth and brought the two together. That's Apollos.
Yeah.
And then he follows up on that in chapter 12. So, yeah.
And in between that, he disqualifies everything that he says.
He seems to just go crazy.
Yeah.
It's like the man who understood with precision understands nothing. Suddenly.
Yep.
But we'll have to go through that with you. It starts at a very specific verse. It ends at a very specific verse. We see it, and my God, once we were able to see it, every word in it just drips with pre-cross ignorance, or the things that Peter taught and the things that James taught. They are all suddenly in the middle of the letter that Apollos wrote, and they added on a chapter at the end.
Again, folks, as you can see, research is happening at, I wanted to say the speed of light, but that's happening too.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't, you were stuck your neck out there. I've been researching Einstein's theory I've been researching this for more than 20 years. Ever since I heard Einstein's theory about the light traveling, I have been doing research to some degree, but here recently it has accelerated, of course, having AI to help do the research. But I will say this part, folks. If you think that you are peacefully coexisting with the gospel and Einstein's E=mc², you are a fool. You have been fooled, because you cannot believe the gospel. You cannot say that the gospel exists and that E=mc² is also a physics fact. Number one, you're saying something that nobody in the scientific world says. Nobody says that it is a law. Newton's law still stands, and Einstein's is still a theory. So we look into that. Theory means it's, hey, everybody pile in, give us your opinion. So I did, and I now have a 24-page book written on the subject.
Wow. Amazing. So, Michael, about the use of the word Eporanius, we've only have 3 people in the New Testament who use this term. We have Jesus, of course, which we looked at. We have Apollos, which we just stated. We've got some work to do before we can come back to that. We've introduced these ideas that he's presented, which got us into a roadblockade, if you will. But we are breaking through that wall.
Yeah.
So we'll come back to you and follow up on that. And then the Apostle Paul is the other one. Now, Michael, last week we looked at his teaching of that through the book of Ephesians. We saw the beautiful picture that he painted, and then this crazy twist at the end that says that we're supposed to fight with wicked principalities in the heavenlies.
Yeah.
Which is what led us to Hebrews, to show that the heavenlies had been already purified. So how could there be wickedness in it? And just again to point out the pseudographical portion of Ephesians. But Michael, there's another teaching which I think we should go to today, and that is in 1 Corinthians. You guessed it, chapter 15.
How about that?
How many times do we find ourselves back there?
Chapter that keeps on giving.
And Michael, this is the term Epiphanius is used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in this chapter, and it's talking about a Epiphanius body, a heavenly body. And Michael, I think as we go through this is going to really show the transition from heaven to heavenly. From being made of the dust of the earth to being made something more. And what that something more is what we want to get to today. So we've looked at how all of these earthly ordinances played a role. But now this topic is going to show, what about you and me?
Yeah.
What happened through the 1,000-year reign of Christ, culminating in the death, burial, and resurrection? What happened to humanity?
Yes, and let's make it very clear. There now is no such thing as, the only thing that exists is Epiphanius. Oranius does not exist. Now you say, well, it's still out there. But you see, when the heavens when heaven is spoken of, it's not only talking about a location, it's about its inhabitants also.
Yeah.
Now, remember, we went through a long time ago and showed you at no time were humans inhabiting heaven. It was God and the angels, even Satan going back and forth, getting his 2 cents worth. But the only time that we see humanity gathered in heaven is in the Revelation, and it is for the marriage supper of the Lamb. Which makes perfect sense, because in the Hebrew understanding, the place for the marriage supper was always at the father's house. But then the father, like so many old men do, they eventually end up living with the couple, right?
Yeah.
But that is exactly what happened, is that they had this big marriage supper, and in the middle of the marriage supper, everything begins to shake. Remember, Paul said that everything that's in heaven, even in heaven, would be shaken. I think I know the moment it started shaking. And so everything in heaven began to shake. They were in the middle of this marriage supper of the Lamb. And that marriage was concluded, and all of a sudden, this incredible quaking began. And the next thing they knew in this great marriage supper in the sky is that all of that, everything that was a being that lived in heaven began to descend. And a descension of everything in heaven, the throne room, Christ at the right hand, everything began to descend and settle into the entire race. We have the event recorded. It was a whole lot of shaking going on. And it was shaking because it was detaching from heaven itself to be brought down. And John said, I saw it. My God, look at this. all of heaven has broken loose from heaven. It's all descending. I'm seeing it coming down, and bam, now it is here. And now it is not a heaven place. It is the heavenly place.
Let me tell you how I used to preach that, Michael. I just remembered a message that I preached that, it got people so excited. And I called it what you just said, a whole lot of shaking going on. And I talked about how the shaking was an ongoing thing. And ultimately, it would end in a place where everything that was evil, everything that was bad would be shaken off. And the only thing left would be the kingdom of God. But it was futuristic.
Yeah.
And now I'm happy to say that I was wrong. And here we can proclaim that all the shaken that could be shaken has been shaken. And all that is left is the pure, holy, righteous, sinless kingdom of God.
But the awesome thing is that, Daniel, is that you were also correct in your theology. It was just a theology that got couched in eschatology.
Yeah.
And the only problem with what you said, everything you said was absolute truth.
Yeah.
It's just that thing that had been hidden from us through Christianity. See, Daniel, just in you telling me that story, Daniel, shows me the depth at which your heart was seeking truth. You saw it, but Christianity made you misplace it.
Yep.
That's a beautiful story, dude. I'm telling you, that's beautiful.
And the thing that got it right, the thing that got it placed in the right timeline is understanding the 1,000-year reign of Christ. And I want to bring that up because that's what 1 Corinthians 15 here is doing, is we learn through 1 Corinthians 15 where death, the enemy, became the footstool.
Yeah.
And that is the end of the 1,000-year reign of Christ. Remember, it began at the seating of Christ at the right hand of God and the enthronement of King David. And it went for 1,000 years. And precisely 1,000 years later, we have the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, which according to 1 Corinthians 15:21 says, "For since by man came death, by man also comes the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ all shall be made alive. But each one in his order, Christ the firstfruits, after those who are Christ at his coming." And that coming is not 2,000 years later. That coming is at his resurrection, which is the very topic of what he's talking about. Now, I want to jump down to verse 35 and start into this discussion about this heavenly body, this Epiphanius body. "But someone will say, how are the dead raised up? And in which body do they come? Foolish one, what you sow is not made alive unless it dies. And what you sow, you do not sow that the body shall be, but mere grain, perhaps wheat or some other grain. But God gives it a body as it pleases, and to each seed his own body. All flesh is not the same flesh, and there is neither one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of animals, another of fish, and another of birds. There are celestial bodies, that is the Epiphanius bodies. There are terrestrial bodies. But the glory of the celestial, the Epiphanius, is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. There is one glory of the sun, another glory of the moon, another glory of the stars. For one star differs from another star in glory. So also is the resurrection of the dead, the end of the 1,000-year reign of Christ. The body is sown in corruption. It is raised in incorruption." Ooh, I'm going to get Pentecostal.
I hear it. I hear it coming on.
"It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, and it is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body, and there is a spiritual body. As it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. However, The spiritual is not the first, but the natural, and afterward the spiritual. The first man was of the earth, made of dust. The second man is the Lord from heaven. Now, this is Oranius. So he's from Oranius.
Yeah.
Verse 48, and was the man of the dust, so also those who are made of the dust. And as is the heavenly man, the Eporanius man, so also those who are Eporanius. Verse 49, the culmination of this. As we have borne the image of the man of dust, we shall also bear the image of the Eporanius.
Mm-hmm. This is so simple now. See, this is where our Mirror Bible friends and the Global Grace and Andre Rabe, all of these guys, they just absolutely, their CD skipped. They cannot accept that we were ever earthly. They cannot accept that what is now is brand new. You just had Paul go into the greatest of detail that Adam was Adam, was Adam, was Adam. And Christ was Christ, was Christ, was Christ. And what was born from the dead was a brand new body. This is he went through this little bitty piece by little bitty piece. The cats, they has cats. And those cats, they got bodies, right? And then there's little piggies, and little piggies have bodies. And when those piggies have piggies, they have little piggies and those piggies. That's as simplistic as he's getting here. I doubt he used my tone, but I almost hear it there, don't you?
Yep, I hear it.
But what he's explaining is that what has happened was not a part of the, it was not manifested in the original creation.
Yeah.
That God did not create Adam in the condition that Mirror Bible tries to tell you he was created. Not true. And thanks for playing. Wrong. You're not evil. None of these people are evil. They're not bad people. They're wrong people. And they should have known, if they listen to us, they should be having a happy dance now to find out that they were wrong. But boy, I tell you what, if being wrong is not your happy dance place, you will never know the truth. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
You are either out to prove something or you're out to learn something. Those two do not exist in the same universe together. You're either out to prove something or you're out to learn something. The thing that you will know, and I'm telling you, this happens as often as from Powercast to Powercast. We are constantly adjusting what we just told you. And we make no apologies for it, because that to us is the process of learning. We're not out to prove anything. We are simply presenting to you the truth of the gospel as we can see it. Oddly enough, we still are trying to find that mind of Christ that would cause us to be right about everything all the time. But we don't always settle into the mind of Christ every time. Sometimes we still see things from the perspective of just humanity. It is one of the biggest things for me, Daniel, is I have to remind myself is that I am not a part of Adam at all.
Right.
Whatever you find out about Adam, Dad, I don't care if he was born with 4 legs, Dad. I don't care if he had angels instead of angels' wings instead of ears, Dad. I don't care whether or not he contained the light, had the light, Dad. It's Dad. You've got to realize that everything about Adam died at the cross. And what we are, because of the Eporanius superimposition that was placed on us, in us, and has become so much a part. You see, we're not talking about just laying something over the top of something. this term is talking about something, yes, being superimposed, but to the point where that the difference between that's superimposed and what it was superimposed on is now non-retrievable. It's like putting tea in water. You can't. That's the superimposition. I've got a cup of tea right here, and the moment that the tea went in the water, that's a superimposition. But it's a superimposition that you can't find where one starts and the other ends. It's all one thing now. So,
you know, there's a phrase here that paints that picture, Michael, and it's here, of course, in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 54. Death is swallowed up in victory.
Yeah.
That word "swallowed up" is katapino, and it means to swallow, to drown completely, to devour, to engulf, to consume entirely. It means to drink, to totally encapsulate everything. And you know, Michael, the Apostle Paul also writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. This is a beautiful picture of this. For we are in this tent, and we groan, being burdened. Now he's talking about that Adam creation. Not because we want to be unclothed, but furthermore enclothed, that mortality may be swallowed up in life. And so that's that very picture. That whole Adam creation was swallowed up.
Yes.
That death was swallowed up. It was engulfed. It was completely, entirely devoured by the heavenly.
Well, it is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful picture. And it is an irrefutable, non-debatable picture. You either say you accept what you see or you deny what you see. That's the only thing you can do with this. So the absolute importance of this is something that the Gospel Revolution has adhered to. It is a guidepost, and that is the fact that the gospel of peace and the gospel of grace did something. Now, ever since I shared the gospel of grace, probably near 40 years ago now, the very first time that I stood up and shared that, we have not looked back. That understanding of peace, not just with Christians, but the whole world, has been the guiding star that has caused us to see all the points at which we are melded together and where that we are completely swallowed up, how we are the Epiranus, at how we can see that we are the body of Christ. These are states of being that we are. And being is being. And it's really amazing. I coined a phrase that spread around the entire world that happens to be wrong.
Again?
Yeah. All right. So this is what happened. I made the statement that God created human beings, not human doing. Oh my God. That just.
What do you mean? I love that saying.
I know.
What are you doing to me?
I know. So then one of our current GRs, probably 25, 30 years ago, went to one of these. This is when these self-improvement programs were at their peak, and you couldn't do it online. You had to go to and gather at the conference center, and everybody had a room. They gave you a quick inoculation of don't think for yourself, we're going to think for you. Because that's basically what they did. But anyway, they had people sharing afterwards, and if I could think of the name of this one, it was literally around the world and got even bigger. But in that one, he, of course, had learned from me about this statement about human doings and human beings. And he said that one of the things that he had learned is the difference between being a human being and a human doing. And the whole place just went wild. The guy who was in charge of it, like, oh my God. Well, they incorporated that into their literature. And that spread around the world about the difference between being human beings and doing. I've heard it on TV programs and stuff since then. But it did coin the phrase, that particular phrase. But I coined a phrase that is incorrect. God did not create human beings.
What did he create?
Jeremiah was a bullfrog? I don't know.
So what you're saying is that statement, I guess, is kind of aligned with our mystic friends, isn't it?
It does align with them, and we've not found fault with it because we stumbled into this. Now, the odd thing is we stumbled into this on the same day that Lisa and probably Ethan together began to research on this very term. So what you and I were talking, and so I asked another, it was kind of tantamount to that point where, well, if the 1,000-year reign begins here, then where did it begin? And we took our 1,000-year-long string and we turned it every direction until we turned it directly back in history, and we wound up at the anointing of King David.
Mm.
So we ended up at we took our 1,000-year string and we stretched it back, and guess where it landed? Psalms 110:1. Bingo! Precisely there. So we were doing this same breakdown of thought about being. And we were, I don't remember our exact question, but we wanted to know. So we started doing research on this term. What did God create? The very thing that Daniel just asked of me. And where did this term come from? I know that I didn't originate the name human beings, but you know what we found is that the term being was added on in medieval times and was really brought to life during the Renaissance. The term being. But there is no place in the Hebrew scriptures, all the way up to the cross, where anything is ever mentioned about God creating human beings.
Mm.
He created humans. Because the term being. So Daniel, take us from there and help walk us through this.
Well, I wonder if the best thing to do is you created a document, Michael. I wonder if I just read that document. I think it's said very well. You okay with that?
Yes, let's do that.
This is the becoming to being, the collapse of human race into light. Number 1, the dust and the long becoming. The word human finds its root in the Latin humus, earth, ground, soil. Fitting then that the Genesis narrative describes Adam as formed from the dust of the earth. His breath, borrowed and given, made him a living soul, but not yet a being of light. He was temporal, bound to entropy from his first inhalation. Adam was not the beginning of being. He was the beginning of becoming. His days were marked by separation, effort, and loss. Every movement forward has tinged with the fear of death. His identity was never fixed, always dependent on obedience, sacrifice, and covenant. He was, in every way, unfinished. The Hebrew thread of being. The Hebrew scriptures do not contain philosophical word for being in the Greek sense. Instead, they present being as active, unfolding, and relational. The verb heya means to be, to become, to exist. It appears at creation. Let there be light. A release of light, not a manufacturing of a substance. Also, God's name, Yahweh, is derived from heya, expressing not fixed essence, but dynamic presence. I will be who I will be. The concept of panim, or face, signifies presence. In Hebrew, to be is to be present. There is no being without relational immediacy. The breath of life imparts presence into dust, making the man a living soul, not because of his dust, but because of the breath. The vision of being is not static, it's not abstract. It is spoken, present, and real. This aligns precisely with the principle behind the Lilborn Equation. We got some more to say on that. That light, and therefore being, is not a traveler. It is revealed in presence. So, the etymology of human being. The phrase human being arose slowly, combining two powerful linguistic concepts. Human, from humus, earthbound, made of clay, and being, the Old English being, to exist, to be present. Together it meant a creature of the earth who is. But this was aspirational, not factual. In Adam, it was never fulfilled. Adam was not a being, he was a condition. Only Christ, as the final Adam, born not of the dust, but of light, revealed what it is meant to be. The resurrection was not the renewal of the old, it was the creation of something that had never been before. Light, not dust. When God said, "Let there be light," he did not create. It says nothing of fashioning or forming.
Yeah.
It was a release of presence, spoken into being. That light was not the sun or the moon or the stars that came later. This was existence without source, energy without origin, presence itself. Now we understand Adam was a 6-day creation, but we are first-day manifestations. Wow. Oh, that's good. Not made of the dust, but of light spoken before the foundation of the world. And so Christ, called the light of the world, stood in contrast to Adam, the man of earth. In Christ, the light was not reflected, it was revealed. And in his resurrection, we were revealed with him. The collapse of the old humanity. At the cross, Adam, along with everything that belonged to dust, died. This was not a metaphor. It was cosmic entropy. The law collapsed, covenant ended, distance dissolved, separation surrendered. In that collapse, the long, painful becoming of human race ceased. No longer was righteousness deferred. No longer was identity earned. The human race was no longer trying to be, it had become. The new definition of human being. So now, what is the human being? Not a person with a soul and a body, not a candidate for judgment or a seeker of God, not a believer, a disciple. A human being is now to collapse. The human being is now the collapse of dust into light. The revelation of presence, no longer in becoming, but in being. Christ is the final and last human being. The fullness of God and man inseparably joined, and now all humanity has been folded into that being. The you of Adam is gone. The light of the world is now you. Human history was never evolving toward this. It was destined for it, not as progress, but as revelation. We are not evolving. We are not believing. We are not achieving. We are. Let there be light.
Yeah, I've been trying to put this into words for the last few years. And I know people will remember when we first presented this that we are not 6-day creations anymore. We are first day manifestations. And I used to say we were created on the first day. But then what this did, Daniel, is forced me to read this in its context. And God did not create light.
Yeah.
He just said, let it be. Sounds like Beatles song, right?
Let it be.
Let
it be.
And then we've got the group that I saw perform at the Grammys. And I should be the one who could name their name, but they did the song Hey Ya. And it's like that's the name that this song must have driven the Jewish people crazy, because this is the name spoken out in song. I don't know if the guy knew what he was doing, but this is the word that is embedded in that means that very thing, the beginning, the relationship, and the conclusion of the relationship.
My goodness.
All in the word in, I-N. So, Heya, H-E-Y, A-H. So, and that's exactly what this song says. It's just, sometimes you wonder if some people know these things and then they say, but it just might have been something that evolved also just in slang language. I don't know. But maybe people were so ignorant that, Spirit begins to get people to start singing. If you're not going to say my name, I'm going to develop slang language and lead people into slang language, and I'm going to get the whole world singing, hey, That's my interpolation. So, but I don't know still. Thank you for reading that, because even writing that, it's still, how do we say this? I do not see Adam in anybody. It's like Paul said, I choose to know nothing about anyone except Christ and him crucified.
Come on.
That's what I know about Adam. I just know him. I just know him crucified. That's the only way I know him at all. Other than that, I am the light of the world. Jesus brought us that. He was the light of the world. Light has some very strange properties to it that Einstein, I really think, distorted in saying that light travels. But light only shows up at its origin and its reflection.
Mm-hmm.
It is weird that it's darkness in between the two places.
Yeah.
And that's in a vacuum. You say, well, why do we see light beams? Because you're seeing light reflecting off of particles of atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
If you show a flashlight on a foggy night, you'll be able to follow the light. We call it a light beam, but it's not a light beam. It's a light reflection going on. Because if there were no atmosphere between the source of light and and it does reflect, but the only thing that exists, and they exist simultaneously, is the origin and the reflection.
The girls and I just went to a sporting event the other night, and after the night, they had a laser show. But it took about 15, 20 minutes after the game. And what they did is they filled the arena with fog.
Yeah.
And they had these fog machines, and they created a fog throughout the whole arena so that when they did the light show, you could see all the lasers and all the colors and everything. Yeah. But had not it been for that fog, Michael, the laser show would have been dull. You would have saw the little beam of light coming from the machine, and maybe where it hit the wall, but everything in the middle, it would have been boring.
The only thing that you would have seen is what part of atmosphere that was there to reflect it.
Yeah.
So rather than take a chance on what was there in the atmosphere to reflect it, they introduced particles to reflect.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Case in point. And I know that your mind was like, oh, wow, Michael's right?
Of course you are.
This is a language. This is a being that we are only learning what this being is. Now, ever since the cross, we have been beings. So it's funny that the word began to be developed after the actuality of it formed. When it was being used during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, it was already a truth. It was not a truth from the beginning. In this, this is what Daniel and I were working on at the same time. I get almost simultaneously, I get the phone call from Lisa telling me about this work that they're doing. And it's like, my gosh, I didn't try to interact about what we were doing because I just simply wanted to absorb what she was conveying. And the more I listened, the more I learned. And the more I learned, the more I realized this is really quite amazing. That Christ, when we read that translation that included the word that they dared not speak, you know, the word they dare not speak is Christ.
Yeah.
And so they dared not write it. You know, Christ is eliminated almost 7,000 times out of the Hebrew scriptures.
Wow.
So Lisa was asking me, this has to be good. It was deliberate. We don't know the intention behind the deliberation of that act. We do know it was deliberate. Their excuse is the name that they dared not speak, then also must translate into this. We must not write it.
Yeah.
But that was not a commandment from God. That was not an instruction from God. They obscured Christ from the Hebrew scriptures deliberately. Did they know with intent what they were doing? We don't know that. But scribes to this day do not include the word that dare not be spoken.
I got a question. I have a question about this human being. This God did not create a human doing, but a human being. It relates also to the man of the dust becoming the Epiphanius man.
Yeah.
Heaven and earth becoming one. It's obvious as I look across this camera, I see, excuse my terminology, the dirtbag, Michael. I see the earthly man.
Yeah.
It's obvious as I look out my window, I see the trees and the dirt itself. So what is it that this, can you explain that a little bit about how is this heaven and how has heaven and earth become one and yet we still call it heavenly?
Excellent question. The briefest, most concise answer that I can articulate at the moment is I don't have a clue. However, I do have a clue. And I think it's wrapped up in the singleness of the mind of Christ. This mind of Christ, what we have witnessed is that the gospel is an expression of the mind of Christ in its thought. What we have experienced is, even in this dirt form that we are in, and in which we exist, our mind does not have to exist in that consciousness. Because what that is also, Daniel, it's a consciousness of insufficiency It's a consciousness of not being. It's a consciousness of striving. It is a consciousness of punishment. It is a consciousness of reward. It is a consciousness of death. So the best way to describe it that I have right now is that this is a consciousness of life. This is a consciousness of being. You see, the best way to say what God created in Adam was not a human being. He was a human becoming.
Mm.
He was born, he was created into a process. Now, our friends discount that process. And we simply accept the process. And even this deepest understanding of the Hebrew language shows us that that being was not the state that God created Adam in. It was also not the state into which he fell. It was the state in which he was created in.
Mm.
So the technicality, I'm not trying to diminish, it's just as we look at it in hindsight, it's a technicality. The technicality of him, quote, falling, which is never mentioned anywhere, it was a part of his becoming.
Mm.
And it was not only a part of his becoming Epiphanius, it was also a part of God himself becoming Epiphanius.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this origin in the creation of man. And we also have the beginning from the end established in the very first word of the Hebrew scriptures. We have the beginning, we have the relationship, and we have the end. Jesus resurrected this word in and its full meaning when he said, I am the Alpha and the Omega.
Mm.
That is the fullness as far as we're at now. Folks, this is a big, 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 big subject. It is simple, but it's huge, and it's only beginning to fragment our previous conceptions about this. When truth comes in, it first has to fragment that which you thought was solid, just like human being. You see, I thought that was a solid thought. Turns out, with truth coming in, it suddenly fragments the term being. When something fragments, then you have pieces around that you don't know where they go yet. And they've not fallen yet they're either going to fit someplace else individually, or they're going to make something else collectively, or they're going to fall off the screen entirely.
Mm.
As we learn truth, please understand that truth does not come in and replace what you thought. Truth comes in and fragments what you thought. And then each of those little pieces that go into fragments, that you're going to be examining those fragments. And those fragments, as I've said, they will either reform another shape, or they will, one by one, they will disappear. Or one will stay, another one will go, or they all fall completely out of view.
Mm.
So this is the process that I've experienced of introduction of truth. That's why it is so surprising. You see, the surprise is not always just the introduction of truth, it's the fragmentation of what you thought was true. I don't know if that's a bunch of gibberish or what, but that's what I experienced.
Well, this verse comes to mind when you talk about that consciousness and this whole transition from a human doing to a human being. It's Romans. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal man is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can be. So then those who are of the flesh cannot please God. But you are not in the flesh, but in the spirit. Maybe we could say heavenly.
Yep.
if indeed the Spirit of God dwells in you. Now, if anyone does not have the Spirit of Christ, he is not his. And if Christ is in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the Spirit is life because of righteousness. And I think verse 11 might be the answer to my question. But if the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies through his Spirit who dwells in you. Now, Michael, at that reading of that, one might say, like the mystics say, that, well, it's just a mindset, just get your mindset right. Adam just was in the wrong mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But as Michael has taught us, keep reading. Because as you get down later into verse chapter 8, it says that Adam was created was subjected to fertility.
Yes.
So there was this first creation that was subject to being, to not being, but to becoming.
Yes.
And his becoming was actually a becoming to be destroyed so that something new could take its place. And that placing was this merger, this superimposition of the spirit and body and flesh. But the flesh, and that was the great study that we did there in Hebrews, Michael, was that everything that defiled this temple, our bodies, everything that defiled that was destroyed. And so really the heavenly is this beautiful merger of spirit and flesh, but the life-giving part of it is the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And because the life-giving part of it is spirit, it permeates our entire mortal body, and which totally goes against everything I was taught as a little boy. This flesh is just, it's totally against you. You're at war against it. You're at war against your mind. Everything your body wants is evil. You're going to go on a fast because food shouldn't have power over you. You can't have those thoughts because those thoughts are going to have power over you. They're going to control you. Don't let the flesh do this. Don't let the flesh do that. But Michael, in the new creation, it's all one, and it's all pure, and it's all righteous. It's all holy.
I think what you've explained, Daniel, and Paul has explained, and Christ has explained, and the Hebrew Scriptures have explained, is that we still have that body that was formed. But what we have to look at, where did the life come from that animated it? The thing that animated human body was breath, right? But what animates the human body now is light.
Oof. Come on.
So our animation now does not come from breath. That all died. And as Mel brings to my attention, that breath went back to God. Mm-hmm. And why did that breath go back to God? Because it was no longer needed. We are now animated by "Let there be light." That is us, and I have to say, if we were to charge the value of this, you just have to give us your bank accounts and just say we surrender. The value of what you have just learned, that the animation of humanity no longer comes from being breathed into by the breath of life. The animation of the human now, I may have said human being, but the animation of the human now does not come from breath. It comes from being animated by "Let there be light."
As we have borne the image of the man of the dust, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. Now, that word shall not be. It shouldn't be. It's not in the. So as humanity has borne the image of the man of the dust, so also humanity bears the image of the Epiranius.
Wow. And that is the light of the world.
Yeah.
All you can say about.
Oh, wow. A Resurrection Sunday indeed. My goodness.
Well, it is a Resurrection Sunday, and probably for many people, for the first time, they now understand on this Resurrection Sunday recording that we are not Adam in any degree portion at all. Mm-hmm. We are not even animated by the breath of life that God breathed into humanity. We are animated by the light.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, even Jesus, who walked the earth, and you would look at him, and many looked at him and just said, he's just another dirt bag.
Yeah.
He was more than that. Yeah. He was the light of the world.
He was. And now are we?
Wow. Michael, what is happening?
I don't know, Daniel.
How do we come in here and we make that statement at the end of each PowerCast that we're going to come back and do it better? And it seems like we do it.
We actually do it, yeah. Permanently ensconced in our presentation by Donald Allen Beresford Bartlett. That's the full name, right? And goodness
as he
gracious.
Rolls over in his grave right
yes.
now.
So what do we say? We say thank you, and we walk around. There is something about this that has something very powerful to do with the fact that we do not suffer guilt and we do not impose judgment. That's when you can really tell that the effect of being the light of the world is taking effect. You are still living from the breath of life, if you will, because that was the process. You're still repeating the process that already culminated in the human being. We were filled with guilt and we were filled with judgment. And if you still are experiencing those, the only thing that gets it out, I don't have a formula, folks. I wish I could send you out a sheet that says this is how that you get rid of guilt. This is how you get rid of judgment. Nobody told me I was going to stop worrying. I had no concept of not worrying. I thought worry is how you show you love. And when that concept broke out of my conscious mind, so many things. I now just stand around and I look at the cataclysmic collapse of my former way of life. An absolutely cataclysmic collapse. And something has replaced it. And it's like I'm looking out of a different house now. It's like I'm living in a different place. I can't tell you how I got here, and I can't even fully explain what it feels like. Daniel, what has happened to you?
I can't explain it. Just like I'm dumbfounded. Just like and the thing that comes up is time and time again is a lot of times we just read it.
Yeah.
And it's like we, as you said earlier, we were truly in a vacuum, and now that vacuum has been breached, to see the light, it's amazing. And really, I say, what are we doing? And that's really all we're doing. We're standing back and looking at the light because the vacuum had been destroyed, and now we can actually see and we can hear something that was there the whole time, something that was spoken 2,000 years ago, and in many senses, 6,000 years ago.
Yeah. And so, and this is, for me, directly connected to the 24 chapters. I think it said pages earlier. The 24 chapters that we're now, 23, 24, I think I'm into 25 now. chapters of this, what has been coined to be the Lilborn Equation. Why the Lilborn Equation? It replaces Einstein's equation. Einstein's equation is E equals mc squared. C is light squared. Now, what people don't know is speed of light squared is 88 quadrillion miles per hour, per second. Well, not per mile, it's per second. What does that mean? That means it can't be measured. Even if it's real, it can't be measured. So Einstein got by with this because of the magnitude of the number. What the Lilborn equation poses is that energy and mass, those energy equals mass, that is still there. But the equation is not transitional. It is it goes from one to manifestation, not in transition, because the speed and the transition is measured by the quote speed of light. But what is called the Lilborn equation says that light is an immediacy, just like we taught on the immediacy of righteousness. Light is immediate. It is not a traveler. So this equation says E equals M small script L. E equals M small script L. And we are holding this up to the light against E equals MC squared. We found out that all of the bad things that E equals MC squared does, the Lilborn equation also comes up with the same negative and powerfully negative things that can happen in that. But it also translates that in the beginning, we were not created by a big bang. We were created by let there be light. Therefore, we are not stuck within the realm of entropy, and we're not going to die heat death. A lot of Christians say that they love Einstein because he says we're dying of heat death. But heat death means exactly what it means. It doesn't mean that you're going to die in a heat that was part of the thing that was cut off. But it is an absence. Heat death is the death of heat, is what that means. So it means that you're going to freeze to death, not burn to death. So those who think that Einstein's end equation agrees with the Bible, they are absolutely crazy. But if you accept the end of Einstein's equation, you've accepted there is no creator. So E equals M small script L is the exact same equation. It's just the beginning, and there's not this looming burning out of the universe because entropy cannot be applied. Entropy that is experienced here on Earth cannot be applied.
Well, thank you, Professor Lilborn. Wow.
So the application. So why is that important? Because folks, we can sit here and hey ya about the gospel. I'm going to change the yada 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 to hey ya. The name that dares not be spoken. If we're talking about a gospel resulting out of a creation, there has to have been a creation. Einstein is either right or he's wrong. If he's right, everything we've taught you about the gospel is wrong. No, I don't care how hard you try to play Twister and say Einstein was right and also the gospel too. That is not possible. Christianity's wrong. Everything that sees and evolves from God being a creator is a lie. Based on Einstein's E equals MC squared. We go also into the book why people accepted this, and it really is amazing. And Daniel, I've posted all the chapters to Daniel, also to Jackie. Barner. He's a teacher. I thought, this should be posed to a teacher. And Daniel needs to be on top of what we're doing here with this, because we all need to understand this. But we're not going to stop and start teaching. This will be something we publish, and it will be woven into the gospel, because we've already woven it in, because we've already told you that in the beginning, God. We've already told you in. All we had to do is say the first word, in, and that completely cancels out E equals MC squared. So it's inescapable that we also go in and not only rewrite the gospel as presented by Christianity, we now must reintroduce physics back to its accountable state, and that was Newtonian physics, which is law. And Einstein's theories have never become law. They've never replaced Newton.
I'm amazed at you, Michael. You're amazing. And now that your mind is blown, we must leave you, family and friends. If you'd like to know anything about the Gospel Revolution, or you want to make that big pledge, call our office on
832-318-9339.
and speak to us about how you want to participate, or go to www.gospelrevolution.com and hit the donate button. You can find us on your favorite social media network, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Please be sure to hit that subscribe, share, and like button on whatever platform you are listening. Now it's good night from Daniel Rouse in the frozen tundra.
And it's good night from Michael Lilborn Williams, right here in Clarksville, Tennessee. Guys, your union with us in this effort is palpable. We feel it. We know it. We hope that you feel your union with us in this effort. We are already united in Christ, but not just because of our understanding of the gospel. We are all united together around the world because of the work of the cross. If some of these things has truth has entered your consciousness and it has fragmented something else that you thought was true, just know that's part of the process. It's really amazing. The times I remember introducing truth to people that don't want it, their immediate response is, well, now I'm just totally confused. It's like, yeah, that's the next step. That's what happens when truth hits something that is untrue. Confusion, because what your brain wants to do, your brain wants consistency. And sometimes truth does not lend itself to consistency. But your brain is also capable of rewiring. It will remain capable of doing that until you take your last breath.
We sure hope you enjoyed today's Powercast. And remember, we'll be here to do the same thing all over again next week. Do you dare say it?
Better.
Since you're knocking on the door, you're begging to come in, yeah. Unaware that all the while love's been knocking from within. You are the love you seek, a perfect yet unique, righteous, holy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you feel lost and alone, staring at the unknown, and these words be the cause that guides you back home. We are one, we are love, we are. Know where you gotta be, nothing to complete. It's not a thing that you need, you're the love. Just remember to breathe and take a second off. Look, I'm just trying to remind you that you're perfectly divine, flawlessly designed.
deconstructing religion and barbecuing the sacred cows of Christianity before your very eyes. You are listening to
The Gospel Revolution.